Not everybody's died, and so the tears are dried. And we'll drink, and then we'll drink some more. We'll dance and sing and fight until the early morning light. Then we'll throw up, pass out, wake up, and go drinking once again. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, our episode has nothing to do with St. Patrick's Day. I kind of didn't even think about it because I wanted to cover these two different stories that bad.
It's okay because I'm Irish, mostly Irish, so I'm here with you.
Yeah, and you got your green in-ear monitors too.
I do.
Yes.
I honestly forgot.
Are you
that it was
wearing any
today.
green?
Yeah.
Where?
My eyeshadow, which you can't see because it's in red light.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of hard to tell. But I got my shirt on. So Drunky McDrunkenson, because she's the spirited Irishman. Well, like I said, welcome to Haunts, Graves, and Omens.
Welcome.
My name is Fred Stewart, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host,
Taylor.
Hi, Tay.
Hi.
And once again, always and forever, until the day that he drops dead, it's Marty Cowick on camera.
That might be soon enough.
We have 2 hours. But welcome. Thank you so much for watching the pod and enjoying the stuff we've been putting out. If you've been enjoying the video, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Last week was a heavy hitter, and it was very, very gnarly and very intense. But this week, we are going to dive into the two most Irish things ever, which is public destruction and robbery. So, but it's all takes place in the U.S. This has nothing to do with Ireland or the Irish. But this is going to be two different true crime stories, okay?
Oh.
The story of how two men changed the tactics and weaponry that law enforcement carries every day, and how one man lost his cool and rampaged against an entire town. This is the stories of the North Hollywood Shootout and Killdozer.
Oh.
Yes.
Let's fucking go.
Like, I just wanted to say, so last week, I don't really know what the episodes really entail, because I hear kind of bits and pieces, or and last week before that episode started, I was like, yeah, I'm excited to get into this. And then it when it got into it, I was like, damn, this shit is heavy. I'm not excited to hear about that stuff. It's interesting to me. To hear about it, and it sometimes needs to be heard and stuff, but I wasn't I was I was hella excited for it.
Yeah, not knowing what you're walking into.
Yeah, not knowing. But this week, because you've told me before, we've talked about these stories a little bit here and there, and I am actually excited for these ones for sure.
Yeah, hopefully with this episode, I might be able to put some of the footage up on screen. Probably maybe not as we're watching, but maybe in post. Maybe we'll see. But we're gonna start off with the North Hollywood Shootout, which was one of the biggest shootouts in police history, and I'll get into the reason why it changed so many things. So Larry Eugene Phillips Jr., born September 20th, 1970, and Decibel Stefan Emilian Emal Mashtadaranu, I'm just going to call him Emal, first met in the Gold's Gym in Venice, Los Angeles, California in 1989. Phillips, he was a pretty tall dude, pretty big, and so was Emal. They had a mutual interest in weightlifting, bodybuilding, and firearms, which is a total dude bro thing, right?
Yeah.
Dude, check out these guns, bro. Check out these fucking guns, brother. Look at those guns, bro. Look at those guns. And then there's how about these guns, bro? Fucking what's up? But before meeting, Phillips was a habitual offender responsible for multiple real estate scams and counts of shoplifting. Emal was actually born in Romania to parents who relocated to Los Angeles in 1974. He was a qualified electrical engineer and ran a relatively unsuccessful computer repair business.
Oh.
So, there's some little background on these guys. On July 20th, 1993, Phillips and Emal robbed an armored car outside a branch of the First Bank in Littleton, Colorado. On October 29th, they were arrested in Glendale, northeast Los Angeles, for operating a stolen vehicle. Subsequent search of their vehicle after Phillips was surrendered with a concealed weapon found 2 semi-automatic assault rifles, 2 handguns, and more than 1,600 rounds of 7.62 by 39 rifle ammunition, which is what they put in AKs.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Or SKSs.
Or SKSs. They found 1,200 rounds, 9mm, and 1,200 rounds of 9mm and 45 ACP rounds. They found radio scanners, smoke bombs, improvised explosive devices, IEDs, bulletproof vests, and 3 different California license plates. So these guys are very prepared.
Wow.
Gee.
Initially, they were charged with conspiracy to commit robbery. Both served 100 days in jail and were released on 3 years of probation due to a plea bargain. After the release, most of their seized property was returned to them except for the confiscated firearms and explosives. Obviously. On June 14th, 1995, Phillips and Email actually ambushed another Brinks armored car in Winnetka, Los Angeles, killing one guard, Herman Cook, and seriously wounding another. In May 1996, they both robbed 2 branches of Bank of America in San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles, stealing approximately $1.5 million. What are you doing?
I'm just setting up. You weren't looking.
Yeah. The pair were dubbed the High Incident Bandits by investigators due to the weaponry they had used in the robberies in their attempt in North Hollywood. So let's get to the bread and butter of the North Hollywood shootout, if my PC will load. Excuse me. I guess no episode today. Oh my goodness. Fuck off. So, on the morning of February 28th, 1997, after months of preparation that included extensive reconnaissance of their intended target, the Bank of America branch located at 6600 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, Phillips and Email armed themselves with semi-automatic HK-91s and several illegally converted to Type 56S rifles, a fully automatic Type 56S1 rifle, and a fully automatic Bushmaster XM15 dissipator. So fully automatic ARs and machine guns, which is fucking wild. Coincidentally, I've actually been to this bank. I was in Los Angeles a couple years ago, and I had to stop at the bank to get some cash out because I wanted to tip the bartenders in cash. Yeah. Because it's usually what I do when I travel is I go to a lot of cool bars. And as I walked into this bank, I was like, this place looks really familiar. And then I was like, I know exactly what this place is. It was really, really quite odd. So the robbers allegedly filed a jam jar with gasoline and placed it in the back seat with the intention of setting the car and the weapons on fire to destroy the evidence. After the robbery, Phillips wore roughly 40 pounds of equipment, including Type 3A bulletproof vest and groin guard, loaded bearing vest with multiple military ammo pouches, and several pieces of homemade body armor created with spare vests covering his shins, thighs, and forearms. So dude looks like a fucking juggernaut from Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Super, super packed up. It's crazy. Email wore only a Type 3 bulletproof vest that included a metal ballistic plate to protect his vital organs. Initially, each man had to watch sewn on the back of one glove in order to monitor their timing. Because at the time, it was you have 8 minutes or something like that until law enforcement shows up. Mm-hmm. That's the whole true crime stereotype thing. Okay. Before entering, they both took the barbiturate pentobarbital prescribed to, or was that phenobarbital?
That's phenobarbital.
Phenobarbital prescribed to Email as a sedative to calm his nerves. The forensic toxicology laboratory in the coroner's office later found that, was it epinephrine?
That's indifferent.
Indifferent and
phenylpropanolamine.
For what Taylor said, in Phillips' blood, as well as phenytonin and Email's blood.
Why would they go into this all sedated?
Dude, that's
probably because that way they're nice and calm.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, phenobarb is hard though.
Yeah,
that is a hard fucking drug. That's not a fuck around and find out. Or that is a fuck around and find out sedative. It's not just a chill sedative. It knocks you on your ass.
Yeah. So let's get to the robbery portion. If my PC will load here. Phillips and Email were driving a white 1987 Chevrolet Celebrity. They arrived at the Bank of America branch at the intersection of Laurel Canyon Boulevard and Archwood Street in North Hollywood around 9:16 a.m. They set their watch alarms for 8 minutes, the police response time they had estimated, like I was talking about. To come up with this time frame, Phillips had used a radio scanner to monitor police transmissions prior to the robbery.
I don't know if you said it or if I didn't catch it, but what year was this?
This was in, 1997.
97.
So they are monitoring police radar radios. They have their watches set. As the two were walking in, they were spotted by two LAPD officers, Lauren Farrell and Martin Perello, who were driving down Laurel Canyon in a patrol car. Officer Farrell issued a call on the radio, 15 Adam 43, requesting assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress at Bank of America, and then 211 is the code for bank robbery. So within moments of them exiting the vehicle, they've already been spotted.
Yeah.
So as they enter the bank, each armed with the Noricino Type 56 S1 rifles, Phillips and Email forced a customer leaving the ATM lobby near the entrance into the bank and then onto the floor. Security guard inside saw the shuffle and the heavily armed robbers and radioed his partner in the parking lot to call the police. The call was not received. Phillips shouted, "This is a fucking holdup," before he and Email opened fire into the ceiling in an attempt to scare the approximately 30 bank staff and customers and to discourage resistance. So it's straight out of a fucking movie.
Yeah.
We walk in, it's a fucking holdup, and like literally like a scene from like Dark Knight. Crazy. So Email shot open the bulletproof door, which was designed to only resist low velocity rounds, so like 9mm like pistol rounds, right?
Yeah.
And gain access to the tellers and the vault. The robbers forced assistant manager John Villagrana to open the vault. Villagrana obliged and began to fill the robbers' bag full of money. However, due to a change in the bank's delivery schedule, the vault contained significantly less than the $750,000 the government had expected. So, Email, enraged at this development, argued with the bank manager and demanded more. In an apparent show of frustration, Email then fired a full drum magazine of 75 rounds into the bank's safe, destroying much of the remaining money. He then attempted to open the bank's ATM, but due to a change in policies, the bank manager no longer had access to the money inside. Before leaving, the robbers locked the hostages inside the bank vault, and in the end, they left with only $300,000 and 3 die packs, which later exploded, ruining the money they stole.
So he got upset that there was $750,000 less. So then his only thought is to shoot a gun and just ruin the rest of the money.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't really give a shit, you know.
Well,
he's on all these drugs, too.
That's true.
So he's probably not thinking too well. So this is going to get into why this case is so important, okay? So outside, the first responders, officers heard the gunfire within the bank and made another radio call reporting shots fired before taking cover behind their patrol car. While the robbers were still inside, additional North Hollywood Division patrol and detective units arrived and took strategic positions in all 4 corners of the bank, establishing a perimeter around it. Standard procedure.
Yeah.
At approximately 9:24 a.m., Phillips exited through the north doorway after spotting a police cruiser about 200 feet away. He opened fire for several minutes.
Jesus
Not
Christ.
a quick volley, several minutes. And there's footage of this shit online. It is crazy.
God.
Dude walks out and just goes and starts dumping rounds, dumping rounds. In the initial shooting, Phillips wounded Sergeant Dean Haynes, officers Martin Whitfield, James Zabranovan, and Stuart Guy, and detectives William Krulak and Tracy Angeles. as well as 3 civilians that had been taking cover behind Sergeant Haynes' patrol car. Phillips also fired an LAPD helicopter flown by Charles D. Paraguay Jr., and it surveyed the scene from above, forcing it to withdraw to a safer distance. Phillips briefly retreated inside, then re-emerged in the doorway while Emal exited through the south exit. Phillips and Emal continued to engage officers, firing in sporadic bursts, and patrol cars had been positioned on Loyal Canyon in front of the bank and in the parking lot across the street. So they start coming out and immediately are dumping hundreds of thousands of rounds.
God.
Just fucking laying it down.
That's fucking nuts.
Crazy. Straight out of a movie. So officers who were mostly armed with then LAPD standard issue Beretta 92 FS 9mm pistols, Smith & Wesson 1538 special revolvers, and a 12 gauge Ithaca Model 37 pump shotguns, and continued to return fire to both robbers, but quickly found out that their handguns and shotguns were not able to penetrate the body-worn armor worn by Phillips and Emal. So they're fucking hitting him with 9mm rounds, 12 gauge rounds, and it's doing nothing other than pissing them off more.
Yeah.
And there's, I will, like I said, I will try to post footage of this. I can even maybe put in the links or something like that. But it's crazy because like there's a one section where I want to say the news gets on scene. It might have been from the LAPD chopper. I'm not entirely sure, but it's an overhead view from a helicopter, and Phillips is laying down fully automatic gunfire, just putting fucking rounds down while bullets are striking behind him and striking him, and it's not even phasing him.
Damn.
And mind you, they don't have helmets on.
Yeah.
So
They're getting lucky to not catch one in the head.
exactly. So, this was compounded by the fact that most of LAPD's officers' service pistols had an insufficient range at longer distances, whereas most officers found themselves positioned relative to the bank's entrance. An officer was heard on the LAPD radio frequency demanding 10 to 15 into the shootout. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes into the shootout, warning other officers that they would not, quote, not stop the getaway vehicle. They got automatic weapons. There's nothing that we have that can stop them. Additionally, the officers were pinned down by heavy sprays of gunfire coming from the robbers, making it extremely difficult to attempt a headshot with their handguns. Several officers acquired 5 AR-15 style rifles from the nearby gun store to combat the robbers. So I'm going to get into that real quick. So it takes a long time for you to get a SWAT activation in these kind of situations, right? And especially when it's immediately happening, right? This is only within a few minutes since the robbery has started. And so a lot of these officers and people are pinned down behind walls and behind cars and stuff like this, and they're trying to engage. They're trying to get their fellow officers out of line of fire, and they're realizing that they're not able to make the sufficient damage to these guys that they have to neutralize this threat. So they load up in a car and they fucking haul ass to this local gun store, and they explain to the gun store owner, they're like, we're fucked right now. I'll buy whatever you want. Just give me just something. And the gun store owner goes, I'll do you one better. I will loan you these 5 AR-15s. Just go. Here's all the ammo you're gonna need. Go. And just gave him the guns.
Yeah, what a fucking gangster, bro.
Fucking
Honestly.
gangster. Absolute gangster. Right? So, 2 locations adjacent to the bank's north parking lot provided good cover for officers and detectives. Police likely shot Phillips with their handguns while Phillips was still firing and taking cover near the 4 vehicles adjacent to the north wall of the bank. One location that Officer Richard Zelensky of Valley Traffic Division effectively used as cover was the adjacent Del Taco restaurant wall, which was 351 feet from Phillips, which is fucking close. That's really close.
Yeah.
Zelensky fired 86 9mm rounds at Phillips and is believed to have hit Phillips in the exchange. Zelensky was also able to use this portion used his position to draw Phillips' fire away from Sergeant Haynes and Officer Whitfield, who were both wounded, and only had a marginal cover behind the trees across Laurel Canyon Boulevard. So this dude takes it upon himself to take fire. That way his friends and his coworkers can exfil and get out of there, right?
Yeah.
So the other location that provided advantages for the LAPD was the backyard of 6641 Agnes Avenue. It was a cinder block wall, provided a relative cover for several detectives shooting at Phillips with their 9mm. Detective Bancroft and Detective Harley, in particular, were able to position themselves behind cover and fire 15 to 24 rounds at Phillips from a distance of approximately 55 feet. They were close.
Yeah.
Real close.
Yeah.
So imagine you are in this backyard, you're a detective, you've probably seen some shit, right? You've
Yeah.
probably been in a gunfight
Right.
before, but you've never been in a gunfight like this. Now you're in somebody's backyard and you're 55 feet from a dude who is covered in body armor and is dumping 7.62 rounds like it's the fucking end of the world.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Terrifying.
Can't
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. After email, back to Chevrolet Celebrity out of the handicap space in the North Hollywood lot. Parked the handicap space. What an asshole. Philip received a gunshot wound to his left wrist based on helicopter news footage that showed him to react in pain, which is the footage I was talking about earlier. We actually see him get tagged, and I believe that's the first time you actually see him physically react to this pain.
Yeah.
At the same approximate time, LAPD gunfire struck the Heckler & Koch rifle that Phillips was firing, rendering it inoperable with a penetration to the receiver. Basically meaning no more pull the trigger, nothing happens. Phillips discarded it, rearmed himself with another assault rifle from the trunk of the sedan, because their trunk was open throughout this entire shootout, and this will stay consistent. They will dump fucking rounds. If they don't have time to reload it, they'll just grab a new gun and keep shooting. That way it's almost continuous gunfire.
That's insane.
So this is where the SWAT activation starts to begin. After LAPD radio operators received the second officer down call from the police at the shootout, a tactical alert was issued. SWAT team was put on to activation. Donnie Anderson, Stephen Gomez, Peter Whiterer, and Richard Massa arrived 18 minutes after the shooting had begun, which is record fucking time.
Yeah.
They arrived with AR-15s and wore running shoes and shorts under their body armor, as they had been on an exercise run when they had received the call. Upon arrival, they commandeered a nearby armored truck, like a Brinks truck, which was used to extract wounded civilians and officers from the scene.
Damn.
Wow.
Crazy. So another piece of this story that is really crazy is after the shooting went out, a lot of news agencies have scanners in their vehicle, right? And a lot of news agencies actually showed up and started filming the robbery, not knowing that they were actually going to be within the shootout. And there was some crazy news footage of these guys hunkered down behind a car, and you can just hear near constant automatic gunfire zipping over the top of the car. And this dude is like hiding behind the tire, like trying to get trying to maintain cover. And it's insane.
Holy smokes.
He was shooting at helicopters, news helicopters, police helicopters. Literally, if it moved, he was shooting at him. They were shooting at it. Absolutely insane. So, while still in the parking lot, Emal was shot in the right buttock and the right leg and the left forearm. A fourth projectile lacerated his upper right eye socket and prompted him to duck behind the hood of the getaway car in shock. He subsequently abandoned his duffel bag full of money, entered the getaway vehicle, and started the engine. Phillips retrieved the Hegler HK-91 from the open trunk and continued firing upon the officers while walking alongside the sedan, using it as cover. This is all being televised live.
Yeah.
So you're watching as his car is slowly moving, and he's just going, brrr, 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 just fucking laying it down. As Phillips approached the passenger side of the getaway vehicle, he was hit in the shoulder, and his rifle was struck in the receiver in the magazine. The bullets fired by police. Again.
Yeah.
So after firing a few more shots with one arm, Phillips discarded the HK, retrieved the Type 96, and before exiting the parking lot and retreating onto the street while Emal drove down the road. So they completely separated by this point, right?
Yeah.
Phillips is running down the street. Emal is driving in the car. Okay. At 9:52 a.m., Phillips turned east on Archwood Street and took cover behind a parked semi-truck while he continued to fire at the police. Lieutenant Michael Ranshaw, officers Coronado Torres, John Caparelli, and Ed Brent Linger until his rifle jammed. And this is all being televised live.
Right.
Unable to clear the jam, he dropped his rifle, drew his Beretta 92 FS pistol, we began firing. When he was then shot in the right hand by officers Coronado Torres, causing him to drop his pistol, he went down, he retrieved it, placed the muzzle under his chin, and fired, blowing his brains out live on television.
Jesus.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably thinking, hold on. As he fell, officers John Campanelli shot him in the upper torso, severing his spine. Either bullet may have been fatal. Officers across the street continued to shoot Phillips's body several times as he was on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
After the firing had stopped, officers in the surrounding area surrounded Phillips, handcuffed him. Obviously, he was deceased at this point. It's still a standard procedure done by law enforcement, and removed his ski mask. So they took it off. Now, you're probably wondering, what about the car and Emal, right? Well, his vehicle was rendered inoperable after two of its tires were shot out and the windscreen was covered in bullet holes. And he's also being followed by a news helicopter, or a helicopter of some sort. At 9:56 a.m., he attempted to carjack a yellow 1963 Jeep Gladiator on Archwood by shooting at the driver, who fled on foot 3 blocks east of where Phillips died. He quickly transferred all his weapons and ammunition to the getaway car, but was unable to operate the Jeep due to the driver engaging the electrical kill switch before fleeing. So get fucked.
Yeah.
So, as KCBS and KCAL helicopters hovered overhead, a patrol car driven by SWAT operators Donnie Anderson, Steve Gomez, and Richard Massa quickly arrived and stopped on the opposite side of the truck where the Chevrolet was stopped. Emal left the truck, took cover behind the original getaway car, and engaged them in a 2.5 minutes of almost uninterrupted gunfire.
That's a long
Jesus
time. That's a long time.
Christ.
It is. I know I keep saying this, but this footage of this shootout is by far one of the most insane things I've ever seen. Ever. It is insane how much fucking ammunition these guys had.
That's nuts. Because I've been in a situation to where I was being like not shot at directly, but I was in the crossfire of gunfire. And it probably lasted for a good 30 seconds, and it was continuous gunfire for like 30 seconds, which is probably like over 100 rounds, you know, because there was multiple people. But in that moment, it felt like a fucking eternity, bro.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like it was never going to end. It was nuts. And it was only like 30 seconds long. So I can't imagine like however long the shootout went on, like even that one where it's 2.5 minutes of continuous gunfire, but it was pretty much the whole time was continuous gunfire.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's actually insane how intense this shootout is. And I'll kind of explain, I've already kind of even literally hinted to it at one point of how this changed law enforcement tactics forever.
Right.
So it's 2.5 minutes of near uninterrupted automatic gunfire. Emal's chest armor deflected a double tap from SWAT officer Anderson, who briefly winded him before he continued firing. And Double tap being he fires 2 rounds right to the chest. It just deflects. Nothing happens, but it knocks the wind out of him. So Anderson, the operator, fired his AR-15 below the cars and wounded Emal in his unprotected lower legs. He was soon unable to continue and put his hands up to show surrender. Seconds after Emal's him getting down, officers rushed to pin him down. As he was being cuffed, SWAT operators asked him for his name, for which he replied, Pete. Pete. My name is Pete.
I like how that's his name suggestion.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't think of anything, so he's like, it's Pete.
Yeah. And when asked if there were any more suspects, he reportedly said, fuck you, shoot me in the head. So.
All right.
Yeah, okay. You know, but like.
These guys were not going to go to jail.
No.
Yeah.
They were not planning on going to jail.
No.
Ambulance personnel were following standard procedure in the hostile situations by refusing to enter the hot zone as the area was not deemed cleared and Emal was still considered to be dangerous. Police radioed for an ambulance, but Emal, loudly swearing profusely and still goading the police for shooting him, died before the ambulance and EMTs were allowed to reach the scene almost 70 minutes later.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yes. During a later lawsuit against the retired policemen, John Federell and James Wojtecki and the city, jurors heard testimony that involved the ambulance crew that arrived but left without Emal after Wojtecki allegedly told the crew to get the fuck out of here. Which, honestly, there is reasons why these things are put into place like this. It's because these paramedics don't carry weapons like law enforcement does.
Right.
They have no way to defend themselves. You gonna stab someone with shears when they're shooting at you with a fucking AK? Probably not.
No.
Right? Or an AR. So definitely not happening. The ambulance driver testified that he believed that he was in danger by being in the area. Officers testified that they tried to get the ambulance to come back or to get another one, but the plaintiffs focused on the point at which Federell canceled the ambulance call and told the dispatcher, "We have no officers or citizens down, only a suspect." Later reports showed that Emal had been shot 29 times in the legs and died from trauma due to extensive blood loss from 2 gunshot wounds to his left thigh. So, most of the incident, including Phillips' death and the surrender of Emal, was broadcasted live by news helicopters which were hovering over the scene and televised the action as the events unfolded. Over 300 law enforcement officers from various forces had responded to the city-wide tactical alert. By the time the shooting had stopped, Phillips and Emal had fired over 1,100 rounds, approximately a round every 2 seconds.
Jeez.
Wow.
That is a lot.
So
That's a lot,
did you say exactly how long this whole instance lasted for, from the time they got in the shootout to the time they were killed?
Let's see. So, this would be 9:56 is when Emal was shot down. Mm-hmm. And then the shooting started at, excuse me, at 9:16.
It's less than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Which is a long fucking period of time to be like in a gunfight,
Yeah.
Yeah, so about 40 minutes this whole shootout occurred.
Because I would say most gunfights, the like average amount of gunfights probably don't last more than a few minutes,
Yeah.
like unless you're like in a military op or something, but just gunfights on the streets,
Yeah.
don't last very long.
No, they're very, very short. And what's super unique about this the situation, other than the fact these guys are rocking automatic weapons and they're fully armored up, is like on average a law enforcement shootout like that, or any shootout where you're going gun to gun fight against somebody, you're usually within 10 feet of each other.
Yeah.
Like that's usually you're not really extending that difference, right? Because
Right.
more often than not, these guys are carrying pistols or drawing, shooting, shoot,
And they
get to
run out
cover.
of ammo, or they get taken down. Whatever, it's like
Yeah, and they're not dumping 1,100 rounds, right, in 40 minutes. Now,
these guys were rolling like an army of two status, like,
legitimately like an army of two status. Like it's unreal the amount of firepower they had and the amount of like almost like tactical X training of like reloading and firing, reload, fire, and like just continuous gunfire. That way they're pinning everybody down. Right. So, quick inventory of the weapons used. The Bushmaster XM15 converted illegally to fire full auto with 200-round beta magazines. The Heckler & Koch HK91 semi-automatic rifle with several 30-round magazines. The Beretta 92 FS Inox with several magazines, which is what Phillips blew his top off with. The reason I'm being so disrespectful is because fuck these guys. The 3 different civilian model Kalashnikov style rifles, which were converted illegally to fire illegally converted to fire full auto with several different 75 to 100 round drum magazines, as well as 30-round box magazines. So they were fucking dumping rounds.
Yeah.
It was speculated during the news reports that Phillips had legally purchased 2 of the Type 56 rifles and then illegally converted them to fully automatic. However, Phillips was a convicted felon, so it was not possible for him to legally purchase firearms. The 2 well-armed men had fired approximately 1,100 rounds, while approximately 650 rounds were fired by police. So total, it was
almost double the amount of rounds. Like,
yeah, it was a total of 1,750 rounds total, almost 2,000 rounds collective.
Jeez.
Over 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's like a gunfight. You see like the military get in with
even if that, I mean even that's excessive,
Yeah, super excessive.
Like this is like insane, and this is just happening in North Hollywood. This isn't like like they're in like they're fighting in a combat zone, and it's you're engaging a large enemy force.
Yeah,
this is just 2 guys.
Yeah,
that's it, just 2 guys. Following their training, the responding patrol officers directed their fire toward the center of mass or torsos of Email and Phillips. However, their body armor worn by Phillips and Email covered all their vital organs, except for their heads, enabling them to absorb pistol bullets and shotgun pellets. While Email's chest armor, thanks to the steel armor plate, successfully withstood the hit from the SWAT officer's AR-15, the several pistols carried by the first responding officers were of insufficient power and used the wrong type of ammunition for penetrating even pistol-rated soft body armor. Furthermore, the police were pinned down by fully automatic suppressive gunfire, making it difficult for them to execute the type of well-aimed return fire that would be required to attempt headshots. Which is why when you see them shooting at him, it's kind of hitting all around them. When they're standing outside the bank, it's because this dude is just going like this, back and forth, just shooting. If it moves, he's shooting at it. So they're like, pop up, fire a couple rounds, go down, takes rounds, and they're just doing this back and forth.
If I'm not mistaken, too, also in some of the footage you had showed me previously, because we were talking about this the other day, they were even shooting at like the helicopters, like the news helicopters in the sky.
They were shooting at everybody. Literally everybody. So the Phillips was shot 11 times, including the self-inflicted gunshot wound to the chin, while Email was shot, like I said, the 29 times, and he had the least amount of armor. So, talk about some casualties. There is only 2 deaths in this story. So, 12 police officers and 8 civilians were injured, and the only 2 to die were the suspects. So Sergeant Larry Dean Haynes, the sergeant who was one of the first to arrive on scene, he was hit in the left shoulder. Officer Martin Whitfield was shot and seriously wounded 4 times in the left arm, right femur, and the chest. Officer Coronado Torres was grazed in the right side of the neck. Officer James Zabranovan was shot twice and seriously wounded in the lower back, hip, and thigh. Detective William John Krulak was hit in the right ankle. Detective Tracy Angeles was grazed in the stomach and buttock. Officer Stuart Gray was hit twice in the right femur and the right forearm. Detective Earl Valadares was hit in the right of the head by flying debris. Officer Ed Brettlinger was hit by gunfire by concrete fragments in his face and forearm. Officer William Lantes was hit in the right knee, and Officer John Goodman was hit by flying glass and shrapnel, and the Officer David Grimes was injured in a traffic accident.
Damn.
As for some of the civilians, we had people shot in the face. One was struck across the head by the stock of an assault rifle when they entered the bank. Someone was struck across the face. A lot of people were hit by like flying glass and shrapnel. Some people took some gunshot wounds to the left ankle, hit in the left of the chest, and obviously Larry and Emal. Larry Phillips blew his top off while Emal died due to his blood loss. So out of all 1,700 rounds fired, the only people that died was the bad guys.
Good.
Yeah.
Putting all these people's lives in danger who were just trying to go to the bank, trying to work their jobs.
Yep.
And they got greedy. So I said before that this actually played a key piece in the way that law enforcement handles things now, right? Yep. And the way they operate and their tactics and things like that. Well, this shooting contributed to motivating the arming and of rank and file police officers, like standard officers in Los Angeles and nationwide with semi-automatic rifles like AR-15s. This is why cops carry AR-15s now, is because of this story.
That makes sense.
That's nuts.
The ineffectiveness of these standard small caliber police pistols and shotguns and penetrating the robber's body armor led to a trend in the United States towards arming selected police patrol officers, not just SWAT teams, with heavier firepower, such as semi-automatic AR-15 rifles. SWAT teams whose close quarters battle weaponry consisted of submachine guns that fired pistol cartridges, such as the Heckler & Koch MP5, for those gun nerds out there, began supplementing them with AR-15 rifles and carbines. It's why cops carry fucking rifles now.
Yeah.
It's because of this story.
That's crazy. I didn't know that they didn't always do it, but so they've just been doing it since like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Basically, yeah.
This is the reason why.
Yeah.
So on April 19th, 1997, police raided a house in Anaheim traced to Phillips and Emal. Among the items seized include incendiary 7.62 by 39 ammunition, flak jackets and ballistic helmets, and approximately $400,000 in stolen cash and various firearms.
Damn.
They had ballistic helmets and they weren't wearing them for whatever reason. One particular firearm, a short-barreled AR-15 with an aftermarket red dot sight, was later released from evidence for use by a law enforcement agency.
Damn, that's crazy.
So they don't say what agency it was. I imagine it was probably LAPD.
Yeah.
But I do find it, or maybe Anaheim. But I do find that kind of funny that they were like,
this gun's dope. We're gonna use it.
I'm taking this. This shit's crazy. 7 months after the incident, the Department of Defense, the DoD, gave 600 surplus M16 rifles to the LAPD, which were used to each issued to each patrol sergeant. LAPD patrol vehicles began carrying AR-15s as standard issue, with bullet-resistant Kevlar plating in their doors as well, which was Like, it's crazy how much this has changed things. Also, as a result of the incident, LAPD authorized its officers to carry 45 ACP caliber semi-automatic pistols as duty sidearms. Specifically, the Smith & Wesson models 4506 and 5566, semi-automatic patrol 45 ACP pistols. Prior to 1997, only LAPD SWAT operators were authorized to carry the 45 pistols, specifically the M1911A1, the semi-automatic pistol. So, very interesting. On June 12th, 1998, LAPD Chief of Police Bernard C. Parks released to the Board of the Police Commissioners a memorandum detailing his review of the officers' use of force during the February 28th, 1997 Hollywood shootout. The memorandum contains many details about the shootout, including the badge numbers of officers and detectives, where they positioned themselves in the perimeter around the robbers, and with distances of fire, how many rounds they fired from each one of their weapons, etc., etc. Parks commended the department personnel for their actions to distract the robbers and obstruct the robbers from attempting to evade the police. The memorandum lists the injuries of all the officers who received injuries at the hands of the robbers. So, of course, a lawsuit on behalf of Emal's children was filed by lawyer Stephen Yagman against the members of LAPD, Detective James Wojtek, and Officer John Fitzgerald, claiming that Emal's civil rights have been violated, and that he was able to bleed to death. The lawsuit was tried by the United States District Court in February and March of 2000 and ended in a mistrial with a hung jury.
Here's what I see. Like, when you're firing fully automatic rifles at, like, police officers and or, civilians who are, like, everybody's completely innocent. I think at that point, civil rights kind of goes out the window with, like...
Oh, like with like the right to render aid and like shit like that.
Yeah. Like, they're trying to kill people, like actively. Like, you don't have time to even think about civil rights in that moment of like shit's just going crazy,
Yeah, like, should I read this guy's rights?
No.
Should I like advise him that he has the right to remain silent? Like read his Miranda rights.
Yeah.
Like
no.
He just dumped fucking a couple hundred rounds at me for 2 minutes straight on this one street.
Shot some civilians and probably some of his friends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
The other thing that I think of is they also did not know if there was more than just the two. So there was no way to know that the scene was even safe.
It's true.
So until they know, guess who's not coming on the fucking scene?
Yeah, medics. There's like, this is also kind of one of the another reasons why medics and shit carry body armor.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there. This is a situation where it's very unique in the set of circumstances because this has never happened before. Yeah. So, like, sure, may have been some crazy shootouts, but this is a borderline, like, ground force combat against two heavily armed individuals with automatic weapons that the law enforcement doesn't have.
Probably most police officers didn't have that type of training back then to even deal with shit like that,
Yeah.
Like,
well, they definitely had definitely tactics and stuff has changed since this, but they all did the relative right thing of, like, position themselves, far away and start returning fire, but you can only do that so much when you're being constantly suppressed.
Yeah.
So the suit was later dropped when Emal's family agreed to dismiss the action with a waiver of malicious prosecution. The year following the shootout, 18 officers at LAPD received the Departmental Medal of Valor for their actions, and President Bill Clinton. In 2003, a film about the incident was produced titled 44 Minutes, The North Hollywood Shootout. And in 2004, the Los Angeles Police Museum in Highland Park opened an exhibit featuring 2 life-size mannequins of Phillips and Emal, fitted with similar body armor and clothing they wore and the weaponry they use. Also on display at the museum is the robber's getaway car and Officer Marlon Whitfield's LAPD squad car. Coincidentally, that place is very, very haunted. I know we were thinking that, like, how are we talking about ghosts? We're talking about true crime. But allegedly, that room that houses that stuff is the most haunted and most violently active poltergeist room in the entire building. People will walk in and feel the hands like holding on to them, or feel like scratches, or a lot of violent attacks. So who's to say that these guys' spirits aren't, are still around, and they still want more blood?
Yeah.
Was there a...
It was on Ghost Adventures. Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, was it a Ghost Adventures like episode? Because I feel like we watched it.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So very excited. What do you guys think about the North Hollywood shootout?
Oh man, that was really hard to like not pay attention to. I don't know the right words. It was like really engaging. Like
Yeah.
definitely edge of your seat kind of story. Like
It's
holy shit.
from beginning to end. That story is insane.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
yeah, it's
There's
an
no
intense
lulls.
story.
There's no low points to that story.
Just like when you think about it, 44 minutes, 1,750 rounds.
So if you think about it, as long as you've been explaining that whole story, that's how long that fucking gunfight was.
Yeah. So since I've explained this entire story, that's how long that gunfight was.
Yeah.
That's insane. So now we're gonna dive into Killdozer.
I do know this story.
Yes.
I know. Well, I knew both of these stories, but I know this one because we watched. I think we watched it separately, right around the same time, though.
Yeah. Marty, I don't know if you want to. You can do that. I don't know if you wanted to. Never mind. I'm stupid. Don't worry about it. I was thinking about something, but it's already. It's here. It's done. Anyway. So let's talk about Killdozer. Excuse me.
Sorry, so there's a car alarm going off outside
Yeah.
somewhere.
That's why I was like hearing some shit. So Marvin John Heemeyer, born October 28th, 1951, was an American automotive muffler repair shop owner who, following a dispute with town officials, demolished numerous buildings with a modified bulldozer in Granby, Colorado on June 4th, 2004. So, like I was saying, he was born in October 28th, 1951 in South Dakota. He lived in Grand Lake, Colorado, about 16 miles away from Granby. According to a neighbor, Heemeyer had moved to town more than 10 years before the incident. His friends stated that he had no relatives in the Granby, Grand Lake area. John Baldry, a friend of Heemeyer's, said that he was a likable person. Heemeyer's brother Ken stated that he would bend over backwards for anyone. However, while many people described Heemeyer as an affable person, local resident Christine Baker claimed that her husband was threatened by Heemeyer after refusing to pay for a disputed muffler repair. Baker said that her husband later paid Heemeyer the $124 to get him off his back.
See, everyone always says like, "Oh, they're such a nice guy." They're fucking not.
Yeah, I mean, Heemeyer, like, I think he was just like a pissed off old guy, just like fucking pay my fucking money, like just pissed off,
Yeah.
but like just like hot headed, like because I don't really get like any like scumbag vibes from him. Like every interview I get, like I don't get any scumbag vibes. It's always like he was just kind of an asshole sometimes, but like when he was cool with you, he was nice,
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's the kind of vibe I get from Heemeyer. So in 1992, Heemeyer purchased 2 acres of land from the Resolution Trust Corporation, a federal agency organized to handle the assets of failed savings and loans associations, for a $42,000 to build a muffler repair shop. He subsequently agreed to sell the land to Cody Dochev to build a concrete batch plant, the Mountain Park Concrete, for $250,000. And according to Susan Dochev, Heemeyer changed his mind and increased the price to $375,000, then to a deal worth approximately $1 million.
Jeez.
The negotiation happened before the rezoning proposal was heard by the town council. In 2001, Granby Zoning Commission trustees approved the construction of the concrete plant. Heemeyer unsuccessfully appealed the decision, claiming the construction blocked access to his shop. He was subsequently fined $2,500 for not having a septic tank on his property that his muffler shop occupied. Right? So he is pissed off.
Yeah.
Okay. He's getting feels like the town is attacking him, and he's like, I'm paying all the fucking money, even though I didn't like want to do this, and he's just getting all crazy in his head. So, talk about Killdozer. Heemeyer's bulldozer was a modified Komatsu D355A, which he referred to as the MK tank in audio recordings, fitted with a makeshift armor plating covering the cabin, engine, and parts of the tracks. In places where this armor was over 1 foot thick.
Damn.
Consisting of a 5,000-pound PSI concrete mix sandwiched between sheets of tool steel. And to make an AD Havoc composite armor. So he fucking stacked this thing with body armor, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just armor plating.
Yeah.
This made the machine impervious to small arms fire and resistant to explosives.
Jeez.
Jesus
So it
Christ.
literally was a tank.
It was literally a tank. 3 external explosions and more than 2,000 rounds of ammunition were going to be fired at Killdozer here later on, and it's going to have no effect.
Jeez.
For visibility, the Killdozer was fitted with several different video cameras linked to 2 small monitors mounted on the vehicle's dashboard. The cameras were protected on the outside by 3-inch shields of bulletproof Lexan, which I believe is like some sort of, I believe it's some sort of like clear glass. Yeah, it's a polycarbonate. So it's like a bulletproof glass, essentially.
Talk about like premeditated, this guy worked on this fucking bulldozer for a long period of time, just planning and planning and planning,
Oh, yeah. And
Like-
it's about to get more crazy here in a second.
Crazy.
It's about to get more crazy in a second. So he compressed air nozzles were fitted to blow away dust from the video cameras. So even thought about, what if I get some dust in the cameras?
Yeah.
Thought about that far.
Jeez.
Onboard fans and air conditioning were used to keep Heemeyer cool while driving. He made 3 gun ports fitted for one 50 cal rifle, a 308 caliber semi-automatic rifle, and a 22 caliber rifle, all fitted with a 1/2-inch thick steel plate.
So we went from a 2-man army to now a 1-man army.
Yeah, literally. Authorities initially speculated that he might have had like a homemade crane found in his garage to lower armor hull over the dozer and himself. Heemeyer apparently had no intention of leaving the cabin once he entered it. Quote, once he tipped that lid shut, he knew he wasn't getting out, Dolly said. The investigators searched the garage where they believe that Heemeyer had built the vehicle and found cement and armored steel. Quote, it is interesting to observe that I was never caught, Heemeyer wrote. This was a part-time project over 1.5-year time period.
Jeez.
So, dude worked on it for a minute.
That's how long he was planning on just going on a fucking rampage.
Yeah. So, he was surprised that several men who had visited the shed late in the previous year had not noticed the modified bulldozer, especially with the 2,000-pound lift fully exposed. Somehow, their vision was clouded.
They just saw it and were
Yeah.
like, huh.
Also, you
Isn't that
see something like that, and if you're not like in particularly like looking for something like that, it probably just looks like a piece of heavy machinery. You know what I'm saying? Like,
If you're not a bulldozer
or
fanatic.
if you're, yeah. Like there's probably not a ton of people that could see something like that and think like, holy shit, this guy's building a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you a big bulldozer guy?
I mean, you might see it, but like,
I'm a big Killdozer guy.
yeah.
Killdozer's crazy. So, let's get to the sauce. the sauce. So on June 4th, 2004, Heemeyer drove his armored bulldozer through the wall of his former business, the concrete plant, the town hall, the office of the local newspaper that editorialized against him, the home of the former mayor, which the mayor's widow was then resided, a hardware store owned by a man Heemeyer named in a lawsuit, as well as a few others. And he's going on a fucking rampage.
So he was just pushed to the edge.
Pushed to the edge, and he was like, if you want to try to, because in his mind, he's being attacked by everybody.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm just going to attack you. So Heemeyer had leased his business to a trash company and sold the property several months before the rampage had started. So the attack lasted 2 hours and 7 minutes, damaged 13 buildings.
Jesus.
It knocked out natural gas service to the town, the concrete plant, damaged a truck, destroyed part of a utility service center. Despite the great damage to the property, no one besides Heemeyer, I don't want to expose that, was killed in the event. The damage was estimated at $7 million.
God.
According to the Grand County Commissioner James Newberry, emergency dispatchers also used the reverse 911 call emergency system to notify residents and property owners of the rampage going on in the town.
Would that have been like modern days? It would have probably been way more expensive in damages.
For sure. So, defenders of Heemeyer contended that he made a point not to hurt anybody during his bulldozer rampage. Ian Daughtry, a bakery owner, said Heemeyer, quote, went out of his way not to harm anyone. Others offered different views. The sheriff's department argued the fact that no one was injured was not due to good intent as much as the good luck. Heemeyer had installed 2 rifles and firing ports on the inside of the bulldozer and fired 15 bullets from his rifle at power transformers and propane tanks. Now, while and the people say he had no ill will, they're definitely wrong, and I'll get to that here in a second. But he, quote, he had these tanks ruptured and exploded. Anyone within a half mile of the explosion could have been endangered, the sheriff's department said. 12 police officers and residents of senior citizens complexes were within the range. Heemeyer fired many bullets from a semi-automatic rifle at Cody Dochev when Dorchev tried to stop the assault on his concrete plant by using a scraper, which was pushed aside by Heemeyer's bulldozer. So
Well, and
can't stop a killdozer.
Dochev is the one that he had like the major issue.
Yes,
correct.
That is correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So Heemeyer later fired on 2 state patrol officers before they fired at him. The sheriff's department also noted that 11 of the 13 buildings Heemeyer bulldozed were occupied until moments before their destruction. At the town library, for example, a children's program was in progress at the time of the incident.
Jeez.
So go back to talk about those him shooting at these officers, right? So law enforcement gets on scene and they're shooting small caliber rounds. There's footage of this. They're on top and they're trying to find ways to fit their pistols inside. And they're trying to stop this killdozer, and it's not working. Well, at one point, one of the officers is off, and I believe this is when he was attacking the concrete plant. They're shooting at it, and the bulldozer turns its butt end towards the officers, right? And they're like, oh, he's going to be, trying to head out. And this shield drops from on the backside of the dozer, and all you see is this big-ass fucking barrel. And that was the Barrett 50 cal on the back, where he starts ripping off 50 cal rounds at the officers.
Jesus Christ.
And there's this story from one of the officers. It's actually on Tread, which is a Netflix documentary. You can check it out. They talk about Killdozer in depth and the whole story leading all the way up, right? It's this very simplified version. But like he talks about like watching that shit go and then you're like, oh shit. And he starts running, he dives behind a concrete like block, and the dude, he starts ripping off 50 cal rounds on him. Just like going right over the top of him. Crazy.
Yeah, I remember seeing this actually on like Most Wild Police Chase video or whatever, like in the 2000s on like like true TV type shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing this rampage, and I had forgot about it until you like kind of mentioned it to me. And this shit, like, it goes deep. It's crazy.
It goes deep. It's insane. So one officer dropped a flashbang grenade down Killdozer's exhaust pipe with no apparent effect. Local and state patrol, including a SWAT team, walked behind and beside the Killdozer, occasionally firing, but the armored bulldozer was impervious to their shots. Attempts to disable the bulldozer's cameras with their gunfire failed as the bullets weren't able to penetrate the 3-inch bulletproof plastic. At one point, Under Sheriff Glenn Traynor climbed on top of the bulldozer and, quote, rode it like a Bronc buster. Like a Bronc buster.
They really missed one right there. They could have said he rode it like a bull.
Yeah.
Dozer.
Yeah. Trying to figure out a way to get a bullet inside of the dragon is what he said.
Yeah.
However, he was forced to jump off to avoid hitting the ceiling. Hitting debris.
Yeah.
At this point, local authorities and the Colorado State Patrol feared that they were running out of options in terms of firepower, and that Heemeyer would soon turn against civilians in Granby. Governor Bill Owens allegedly considered authorizing National Guard to either use an Apache attack helicopter equipped with a Hellfire missile or two-man fire teams equipped with Javelin anti-tank missiles to destroy the bulldozer.
That's fucking
Holy
insane,
shit.
dude.
Can you fucking imagine that? Where they're like, hey, we got the military on the way. They're like, oh, cool. They're gonna like block them. And they're like Reaper 2-6. We're gonna cover the helper.
Just fucking.
Just fucking hit him on like 40 mil.
Yeah, that's gnarly.
It goes out and blows a fucking. Can you imagine how crazy that'd be?
Yeah.
Insane.
It'd be so wild. But this was quickly shut down because moments after it was deemed unnecessary when Heemeyer became trapped in the basement of the Gamble's hardware store. So he had rammed through the wall and then fallen partially into the basement,
Oh.
trapping himself.
Yeah.
As of late 2011, Governor Owens' staff vehemently denied the consideration of in the course of action of using an Apache. Since then, many members of the State Patrol revealed to the contrary. The governor did consider authorizing an attack, but ultimately decided against it due to the potential for collateral damage of a missile strike in the heart of Granby being significantly higher than what Heemeyer could have caused with his bulldozer.
That is, you know what? That's fair.
Sure. Various problems arose as Heemeyer destroyed the Gamble's hardware store. The radiator of the bulldozer had been damaged. The engine block was leaking various fluids. At one point during the shootout, the hydraulics failed in the latch, the drop down part for his rifles, and he didn't know that and was just ripping off rounds, incendiary 50 cal rounds, and they were not able to penetrate the backplate armor of his Killdozer. And he fires about 3 rounds, realizing that it's not happening. After about 3 minutes, one of these SWAT team members who had swarmed the machine reportedly hearing a single gunshot from inside the seal cab. It was later determined that Heemeyer had shot himself with a .357 caliber handgun, ending the rampage.
Jeez.
Damn.
Police first used explosives in an attempt to remove the armor plates, but after the third explosion failed, they cut through them with an oxyacetylene cutting torch. That's what it took to cut through these. Grand County Emergency Medical Management Director Jim Holohan stated that authorities were able to access and remove Heemeyer's body at 2 a.m. on June 5th.
Wow.
So
That's a long time that took them to get to that body.
yeah, so 2 a.m. on June 5th, and he started at June 4th. So
It's a long ass time.
went a long, long time. As for the aftermath, on April 19, 2005, the town announced plans to scrap Heemeyer's bulldozer. The plan involved dispersing individual pieces to separate scrapyards to prevent souvenir taking, which I can understand. But at the same time, I would kind of be like, can we just put this in the center of town and be like, y'all fucking remember that? That shit was crazy. Although no one other than Heemeyer was killed in the incident, the modified bulldozer has occasionally been referred to as the Killdozer.
Killdozer.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So it is unclear whether this is like a kind of like a nod to the 1944 story of Killdozer, or its 1974 film adaptation of the independent coinage. But in addition to his writings that Heemeyer had left in his shed, he had recorded 3 audio tapes explaining his motivation for the attack, basically leaving no room for questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The tapes contained 2 separate recordings on each side for a total of 6 recordings. He mailed these to his brother in South Dakota shortly before stepping into his bulldozer.
Oh.
Damn.
So Heemeyer's brother then turned the tapes over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, obviously, who in turn sent them to Grand County Sheriff's Department. The tapes were released by the Grand County Sheriff's Office on August 31st, 2004. The tapes were about 2.5 hours in length. The first recording was made on April 13th, 2004. The last recording was made on May 22nd, 13 days before the rampage. He says, God built me for this job, Heemeyer said in his first recording. He said it was his God's plan that he was not to be married or have a family so that he could be in a position to carry out such an attack. I think God will bless me with a machine. I think God will bless me to get the machine done, to drive it, to do the stuff that I have to do. He said, God bless me and the advantage for the task that I am about to undertake. It is my duty. God asked me to do this. It's a cross that I'm going to carry, and I'm carrying it in God's name.
Why do you sound like you should be voicing over a truck commercial right there?
The all-new Ford 25 F-150.
The all-new Killdozer 425.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me pull up like a little bit. Let's see. I gotta find the all-new Kamamatsu D3055A Killdozer. Yeah. So, basically, major delusions of
Yeah.
the God's telling me to build a Killdozer. Investigators later found that Heemeyer's handwritten list of targets, according to police, included buildings that he destroyed, the local Catholic church, which he did not damage, which is good. The names of various people who he had sided against in the past disputes. Notes found by investigators after the incident indicated that the primary motivation for the bulldozer rampage was his plan to stop the concrete plant from being built near his shop. These notes indicated that he had held grudges over the zoning approval. Quote, I was always willing to be reasonable until I had to be unreasonable, he wrote. Sometimes reasonable men do unreasonable things.
It's terrible.
Which is the fucking hardest quote.
Yeah.
And that is the story of Killdozer.
Hell yeah. You know, if
What a
Killdozer,
story. What a story.
if Killdozer hadn't been scrapped, Zach Bagans would be like, "Can I buy that?"
Dude, honest to God, though, if like they had a piece of Killdozer, you know, they're like, this is a real piece of Killdozer, I'd probably fucking buy it.
Yeah, yeah. For
Yeah.
Because like it's kind of like a North Hollywood shootout thing. Like the bad guys died, you know, the town was able to rebuild, you know, like it's, you know, it's a happy ending to a really shitty situation,
Right.
you know. So it's also just an incredible piece of true crime history where you kind of go like, well, it's not like what's the word I'm looking for? It's like people collect like murderphilia. Like people collect
Oh,
like
yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
like items from crime scenes and shit, like there's Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses and shit like that, you know.
Yeah.
Like that is definitely like a real niche thing, you know. That I can see people understand. Like I understand that some people are like, it is interesting, it is obscure, but with
Yeah.
these two stories particularly, it's like That's just crazy.
Yeah.
You know?
That's just fucking wild.
Yeah. Can you fucking imagine though if like they did authorize that Apache to come in, how crazy that shit would
That
be?
would be nuts,
Yeah.
bro.
They're
That'd be
like
nuts.
they're taking off from the air base and they're like, what's gonna be your target? And it's like, your target's gonna be a bulldozer. And they're like, copy. They go in and they're like, oh my god, it is a bulldozer.
Yeah.
And there's like just fucking just hitting it, and they're like, what do we do? Launch a rocket at it.
Yeah.
The javelin would have been fucking crazy too.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I have a feeling if they did allow that, he would have just been like, all right, boys. Just goes, you know, like, this is the first time I've ever done this out here, so it's gonna get fucking weird, man. But if you enjoyed that story, thank you so much. Rate us 5 stars, listen up, like, share, subscribe, do the thing. You know what I mean? Go check out the Comedy Podcast, .com pod on Instagram. You can check us out on Spotify and all the listening apps and shit like that. We out there. That's me and Marty's podcast. Me, Marty, and Charles. Excuse me. But we out here. We just had a really crazy guest who was our most famous guest ever. That was on. That was very, very cool.
I was trying to like not actually laugh the entire time he was doing that.
You can follow me on Instagram at IHuntTheHaunted. And I'm going to pass it along. Oh, sorry. And also follow, us on Facebook, Haunts, Graves, and Omens. Follow us on TikTok, HGOPodcast. Follow us on Instagram, HGOPodcast. You got a crazy, weird story, and maybe you've experienced some really weird, spooky shit, or maybe you've been part of a true crime story, or you know someone who experienced a killdozer, or was a cop in the North Hollywood shootout. I don't know. Something like that. Email us, HGOPodcast@gmail.com. Passing it along to Tay.
Hi. You can follow me on Instagram at LunarThrill. I am on TikTok. I don't use it very often, but it is the same user of Lunar Thrill. And yeah, that's about it. So we'll pass it along to Marty.
You can follow me on Instagram at Ghetto Feather. Follow my band, the MFA at the Motherfuckers of the Apocalypse. And thanks for tuning in.
Like, share, subscribe. Well, remember to stay spooky.
Stay haunted.
And sometimes reasonable men are forced to do unreasonable things.